Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Monday, December 18th, 2023. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Monday, everyone. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES right now. Very narrow range heading into the RTH Open, just 13.25 points of range. That's 30% of average. This market's been averaging about 43 points per day over the last 5 and 10 sessions. Very bullish. As we've noted before, no signs of rejection or pullback, but we are approaching major resistance again, pushing into the 4,800 level. 4,808 is the previous year's high. That level could provide a little bit of resistance that perhaps leads to at least some backfill back into the 4,650 level. So from 4,600 basically up to 4,800, that's been quickly traded. And once we get up to that edge, perhaps we start to rotate back in and maybe fall into the last 2 weeks of the year into a narrow range, right? That's what tends to happen at this time of the year. So the first 2 weeks of December tend to be a wider range. The last 2 weeks tend to be a bit smaller. We may fall into a bit of a range here over the next couple of weeks. Now again, given the strength we've seen here and the upside price action, we continue to see this bullish rising 8 period and bullish Puma trigger zone. All that, any pullback here could still be a buy for a continuation up until proven otherwise. Again, we are coming into major resistance 4,800, which is last year's highs. That could finally give us some semblance of rejection and maybe a pullback here. But until that happens, got to continue to push higher until proven otherwise. Taking a look here at the NQ. Right now, the NQ trading in a narrow range as well, 25% of average, 56.5 points right now. This thing's been averaging about 229 per day on the 10-day basis and 210 on a 5-day basis. Very strong. You'll notice right now, through the previous year's highs of 16,560, that's the previous year's high there, continues to push higher out of this narrow range as it works towards 17K. Like the ES, we haven't really seen any strong highs at all to speak of during this move since the move began in November. And any pullback could still be a buying opportunity until proven otherwise. At some point, again, we may backfill into the 1610, 1600 zone, 16K zone, 16,190, somewhere in that zone, as that area was traded very quickly through. So again, if we're going to backfill into that area, we may begin with some sort of rejection and kind of work our way back in. Again, we could fall into a narrow range heading into the last 2 weeks of the year with an upward bias as this market continues to be quite strong. Taking a look here at crude oil. Now, crude oil up about 2% here today. Very strong and bucking the early trend here. The trend has been down on a short term, down on a medium term, and today here finding a strong low. 4 in the morning, strong low here, pushing higher through 2-day highs. What would make this very bearish would be if by the end of the day price drops back down and closes lower. If we're closing back below 71.50 today or 71 today, that could be quite bearish. It could look very similar to something like this that has played out recently, where it initially started strong and then it failed and became quite bearish. As of right now, this market's doing just enough for a short-term move higher, but the medium-term trend very much in effect. 74 market structure still serving as resistance, so really bulls need to push through 74s in order to open up the next 10 handles above. Any pullback into 74 with rejection could open up a continuation toward 64 down below. So right now this is a very modest push higher that could take hold, but if we start to fall back below previous 2-day highs, that could open up a failure opportunity. All right, taking a look here at gold futures. Gold right now, very quiet range here at the moment as well. 30% of ADR, 12 points of range. This market right now found resistance at the previous month's close price yet again. Quite a big pullback or bounce here after Fed. but still remaining below 2080. 2080 is going to continue to be the big level there. We could pull back as high as that, but again, bears want to keep that area offered here for maybe dropping things back below into the range below. Now keep in mind, the idea was that we would likely return back toward 1950 by the end of the year as a return to value following rejection. That could still be in play, but again, it depends on how price plays out here early this week. Can it continue to find resistance at the previous month's close? If so, we could be working our way back toward that level. Now this bounce from these lows and that high right there, just shy of giving us a new key range. So are those the boundaries, and do we remain stuck here heading into the end of the year like equity futures could as well? All right, taking a look lastly here at the YM. Now the YM, 97 points of range right now, 97 points. If we bring this back down to a one-day reading here, 97 on a 285, that's 34% of ADR. Big time bullish trend here, very strong, about as strong as it gets. And you just really start looking parabolic if we go much higher at this pace. And so typically speaking, once you get this much elongation, there's a pullback to come of some magnitude, and or pullback in compression. So again, a lot of the early months range has been seen. We may fall in volume and volatility heading into the end of the year. This is a very quickly auction through price zone here, 37 to 38. So again, we may fall back in and just kind of retrade through some of that zone while maintaining altitude heading into the end of the year. Once the end of the year comes up, we'll be watching for potential rejection at the extremes for a pullback toward the midpoint of the previous year's range and the previous quarter's range to start the year. So again, watching for some settling into a range heading into the end of the year, with the potential for a reaction early on in January. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.